There's been an awful lot of squealing from the left about the Signal chat leak. This is where the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz somehow allowed the editor of the Atlantic, a Trump-hating left-wing rag, to kind of receive the details about the attacks on the Houthis in advance. Now, if it was The Apprentice, I imagine Waltz or even Hegseth might have been fired by now. But what's the reaction from the White House?
Yeah, certainly an unforced error. I don't think anybody from the White House is trying to spin it as otherwise. What they're really focusing on, though, is sort of a distinction, I think, that we see a lot plague Washington here, which is the idea that we have to focus on process, right? So much of this story is about, oh, what went wrong and the sort of planning, what the White House is now describing as a substantive policy discussion. They're rebuking and not really, I think, taking the Atlantic's characterization of this as war plans or attack plans. They're focusing rather on the success, right, of these strikes, the success of President Trump taking on the Houthis, when in contrast, you had Biden taking them off the foreign terrorist list, but also letting, 150 plus strikes on commercial and otherwise maritime vessels happening in that region. And it went by, I didn't see anyone in the press briefing room asking questions about that. They're more outraged over the Signal discussion than they are Americans being attacked by a radical terrorist group. So there's obviously that double standard, and this Jeffrey Goldberg character is someone who is, shall we just say, quite curious and very anti-Trump. But on the other hand, I think questions still remain as to why Mike Waltz had this number in the first place. It's obviously under review, but the biggest thing that I think people should take away is that these are text messages that Jeffrey Goldberg had over a week before there was a Senate hearing coming up where all of these people were going to be essentially testifying about foreign threats and their analysis on them. And he intentionally withheld publishing this story. They wanted to drop it, I would argue, colluded with the Democrats just ahead of that hearing so they could essentially make this the ultimate maximum smear campaign and pressure campaign, really to try to force the resignations of none other than Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth.
Wow, that's amazing. Yes, I absolutely, I'm sure you put your finger on it right there, Natalie Winters. Thanks so much for your time. And people, of course, can watch you on The War Room, Steve Bannon's War Room. That's Natalie Winters. Thanks so much, Natalie. We'll speak again next week.
Thank you.